Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining today's webinar on Bullhorn 1. My name is Alex Barca, and I'm on the marketing team here at Bullhorn. And I wanted to cover a quick couple of housekeeping items before we begin. Today's webinar will be recorded, and you will receive a copy of the recording within the next 24 hours. All attendees will be muted during today's session, but we strongly encourage you to ask questions in the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom. We'll get to as many questions as possible before the end of the session. We should wrap up in under an hour. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome one of today's presenters. Emily, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. So today we're going to be going over Bullhorn 1, scale your operations to grow with your customers. So as Alex mentioned, I am Emily Mushba, and I'm a national account manager here in North America. And we also have Chris Lewis on the line, who is a solutions consultant here with Bullhorn as well.
Good afternoon, everyone.
So Chris, if you can move to the next slide, I can jump on in. So what we're really seeing today within the market is, in order to drive growth, agencies must scale their operations, but are hindered by these four elements. So one of them is the underinformed decision. So struggling to make timely informed decisions without a way to holistically see the data. Siloed information, so dispersed billing and pay information that creates obstacles in sending invoices and running payroll based on customer rules. So think about the sticky notes, the Excel docs with customer requirements all throughout your office. And then low value tasks. So agencies are spending too much time today on low value tasks that aren't revenue generating, like sending timesheet reminders, getting client approvals, and reconciliation of time through VMSs. So as you grow as an organization, there becomes more complex client billing requirements, which is leading to manual invoice generation, such as requests of, I want to have my timesheets attached. Can you please do that? That's now requiring your back office person to do manual work, or grouping the invoices in certain manners on the invoices. So who are we really hearing this from? Really everyone within the organization, as well as external candidate and clients. Our executives are saying, I want access to data in order to make better business decisions and ensure the health of my business. These financials should be used to dictate which jobs are worked on and which clients are given priority. The recruiters and sales are maintaining and growing candidate and client relationships. Financials should be taken into consideration when prioritizing the jobs and clients, as well as being able to answer those basic invoicing and timesheet questions. Our CFO and back office, it's all about the cash flow and bringing that into the business. Being able to pay and bill in an accurate, timely manner is crucial. If clients are behind on payment, this information should impact what the front office are doing for their activities and focusing on making decisions around this. And then our candidate and client experience. We have seamless experience is very crucial to our candidates today. We want to have them have a seamless process through onboarding up until when they're paid. If the experience is delayed due to incorrect paying or bill information, it's challenging to manage. And then ultimately the candidate and client experience is hurt, and they're both at risk of leaving and using the competition or even working for the competition. So without a unified solution, it's really impossible to meet all of these needs of the key players within the business and ultimately grow a very healthy and successful team. So what Bullhorn has created is a start to finish solution with robust time and expense, billing, reporting, and data connectivity. Bullhorn is built specifically to manage not only the complexities of our candidate requirements and placement processes, but also the pay and bill, with all of the benefits of the true SaaS platform that adapts quickly to continuously meeting the evolving staffing, recruiting, sales, and operational needs. So at that, I'm going to hand it over to my partner, Chris, and he's going to go through what we're going to discuss today in this call.
Thank you for that, Emily. And yes, so today we're going to be kind of looking at a day in the life of going from the client intake process, where we're going to be able to help streamline that by capturing all of those different rules and compliance information that Emily just spoke of upstream. So that as we are then collecting the time and showing the ways that we're able to provide that enterprise grade timekeeping solution with Bullhorn Time and Expense, that as that time is collected and approved, we're going to be able to easily transition right into having that payable information inside of Bullhorn, being able to share that out with our payroll provider to be able to accurately and quickly pay our candidates and our consultants, and then being able to take that information that we set up during that client intake and quickly and easily deliver the invoicing that's accurate based off of those upstream rules that we did at the very beginning. And then of course, wrapping up with some advanced insight and visibility into your business with some financial analytics. So when we think about the process flow with Bullhorn One, that client intake piece that you're doing today, whether it's going over the rates and the margins for that client, how they're wanting their invoices to be delivered, what's going to be the format of the invoice template, how are they wanting the information to be delivered, how do we want to split these out, when do we want to receive them, is there any particular summarizations and groupings that individual clients are needing. We understand that it can vary from one client to the next. So when we think about that client intake process and the ways that we're able to set this together upstream of bringing in, what are the billing and work site locations for this client? What are going to be the different invoice terms that we're going to be applying, knowing and understanding that there could be multiple different terms, location to location and company to company. And then joining all of that together under one streamlined billing profile so that when the recruiter or the account manager is driving and putting that candidate to work on the job and creating that placement record, it's just going to be one simple field of selecting the billing profile based off the client's needs that have been set up previously when joining that data together, where that placement record will truly act as the anchor to everything moving forward, whether it's going to be, having the place where we're going to be capturing time, taking that approved time and driving it towards our payables, and then exporting out to our payroll provider, being that Bullhorn One's payroll agnostic, and then taking it simultaneously and having the billing team be able to take those billable items and all of those rules that we set up in the top of the flow here and be able to generate those invoices, all right there inside of Bullhorn. But when we think about that time collection piece, right, there's so many different ways in which we're collecting time today, whether it's we have clients that require physical time clocks or consultants that are adding time, whether they're calling it in or jumping on their mobile device and using a web time entry, leveraging a VMS or a third-party automation to collect that time and then doing that reconciliation. Right? Bullhorn Time and Expense is going to allow for that automation of data between all of those systems, consolidating it into one place where you're able to now have real-time and historical visibility for compliance and auditing purposes as well. But most importantly, what I want to spend a little bit of an extra minute on is going to be how the time exchange within Bullhorn Time and Expense is really going to help streamline those processes, especially when it comes to the integrations with the different VMSs. So when we think about having that Bullhorn placement that we just spoke of and the VMS timesheets coming together in one place inside of Bullhorn, and having that single source of truth for all of your data to be able to see that there, collect it, and then drive it into your payables and billables, which makes this easy for the internal teams, the workers, the time card approvers, all while maximizing compliance based off of your unique client and regional requirements. So as we move into that initial client intake, we're going to start off leveraging Amazon distribution today. So you'll notice right here inside of Bullhorn, I have my client record open with my locations, invoice terms, and billing profiles right here across the top with my tabs, just as we've seen in that process flow. So what we're going to start is we're going to look at today we have a new location that we're going to be working with Amazon, and we're wanting to set up all of that information to make sure that those rules flow downstream as we move through collecting and approving and billing time. So when I access my locations, I can have multiple different sites or work sites here. And the one we're going to focus in on is going to be the Hazelwood Fulfillment Center. So when we come in and we look at the different information that we can be collecting right here within this location, things such as, will this be a work site? Are we also billing and selling to this area? So when we think about the ways that we're going to be able to incorporate the sales tax based off of the zip code, right? To be able to have those sales tax codes set up within Bullhorn 1. So based off of that location, being able to bring in those regional requirements when it comes to invoicing. Just as easily being able to say, you know what, we're not doing sales tax on this location, and be able to flag that and turn that off as well. So once we come in and we set that location, as we can see here with the fulfillment center, it's going to be a work site where we're going to be putting our candidate Linda to work today, and of course numerous candidates moving forward. So once we have the location in place, now we're ready to come in and set up the invoice terms. And the invoice terms are really going to be the crux of it all. When we think about when are they receiving the invoice, how are they receiving the invoice, the general terms, the grouping and summarization, what formatted invoice are we going to be using? All of that rules and compliances that you probably have on, Post-it notes around your computer, or a binder or folder that is shared of, here's all of the specific client requirements broken down over each client. So when we think about, all of those pieces, we can think, what about if they hit a certain threshold of volume? Are we going to be giving a discount? Do we have any particular profile set up or thresholds for those? We can drive that information in here as well. So all of those pieces that, the billing team is reviewing and double and triple checking each time invoices are being generated, we're not going to be able to come here and set those rules and allow Bullhorn to do that for us. So in addition to that, as Emily called earlier, with a lot of clients these days needing to have any timesheet and timesheet attachments to accompany the invoicing. So when we think of current process of the way that we're generating the invoice today, and then of course going through and collecting the timesheet and associating all of those together can be rather time consuming for the team. Here, we're able to come in and say, you know what, we want all timesheets and timesheets attachments to be invoiced with these terms as well. Do we need to have all of the invoices approved prior to sending? Are we going to hold this until all time cards for that billing cycle are in and approved? So you're going to be able to have all of that driven right there at that in-depth level. In addition to being able to set the invoice templates that you have created within Bullhorn 1, select the template for this client. We're going to use our invoice base today. If you have remittance instructions, perhaps you want to incorporate banking payment information, or how the way in which to streamline for this client to be able to remit payment. And then most importantly, when we get into the ways in which we're going to be able to split out the invoice, how we're going to group inside the different charges and itemizations on this invoice, and then of course if there's any summarization that's needed. So for example, here with Amazon, they have requested that their invoices for this be split out by the billing contact on the placements. They also want to see all of the candidates under that billing contact to be grouped individually. So of course here for Linda, all of her charges will be into one grouping and any other candidates will be grouped individually as well. And then they want to see each candidate summarized by their subtotals as well. Now, when we think about the different ways that we can group, think about, as the ways that your clients are currently asking for it today. Maybe they want to see groupings based off of PO numbers, and then from there, a subgrouping of that within that PO of different tasks that are being completed, or candidate and then tasks. So those are going to be different ways you're going to be able to come right here inside of the invoice terms with Bullhorn 1 and define those rules for your clients. So as we've defined the rules and we've set the locations, now we're going to be able to join that together right there within our billing profile on our client record. Now the billing profiles will simply be able to say, okay, we're going to take Hazelwood and our net 30 invoice terms and then join all of that together. And this is where it's going to make that streamlined approach when we get to the placement record. Instead of having to go through and select a location and define all the individual terms, it'll just be one simple field to say, you know what, we have this new placement for Linda Calder. We're going to be placing her with Amazon distribution at the Hazelwood Center. And we're going to define that billing profile to that Hazelwood net 30. So with us defining that profile, now all of the location settings and the rules and compliance that we've just created for that client will now be applied to this placement now and moving forward. So with us having the placement approved and ready, Linda's now onboarded and ready to begin work. And now we're going to go and take a quick look at how easy it's going to be for not only Linda to add in and submit her time for approval, but also how simple it's going to be for Jake Owens at Amazon to be able to go in, view that submitted time, and quickly and easily either make suggestions or changes or approve that timesheet as it stands. So Linda will have her login credentials provided to her from Bullhorn to be able to access Bullhorn time and expense. Today, we're going to be looking at it from a web time entry. So Linda's going to simply put in her email and her password and log right in. As Linda logs into Bullhorn time and expense, so she will see a recap of the last 5 weeks of time. We can see here all of the time leading up to the current week has not only been submitted, but already approved. And we're going to jump right into the current week. Now from here, Linda will be able to enter in her hours day over day as she's working, or perhaps she wants to wait until the end of the week and submit them all at once. It'll be just as easy for Linda to come in and simply state, I work maybe from 8 to 5 this day with a 1 hour lunch from 11 to noon. And I can either just save it for the one day, I can copy to the immediate next day, or for convenience with your working professionals, if we're working the same solid schedule all the way through, we can just copy that all the way through the rest of the week. Perhaps on Thursday, Linda had a few extra hours. We could easily come in here then as well and say, oh, well, perhaps we worked until 7. So it's going to give your candidates that very easy and intuitive time entry process with Bullhorn time and expense. If we have any comments or attachments that we need to associate to this timesheet, we'll be able to do that here as well. So once I have entered in all of my time and I'm ready to submit this over to my approver, to Jake at Amazon for review, it'll be as easy as me just simply clicking on submit, acknowledging the attestation here of everything is accurate and true, and accepting those hours. One thing to call out within Bullhorn time and expense when we think about those different rules and compliance of perhaps we're doing work in a state that has certain meal break exceptions that need to be met, you're going to be able to have those designated and designed right here within Bullhorn Time and Expense that can have built-in notifications and ensuring that your candidates are making sure that they're taking their appropriate breaks when need be, as we can see here of having our defined break policies. So now that Linda has put in her full week and submitted the time over, not only will you be able to automate out and have those clicks saved and those emails and phone calls that Emily mentioned earlier about reaching out and following up about timesheet reminders and ensuring that candidates are getting time completed on time. Not only will Bullhorn be able to automate that process for you, but as well as reaching out to remind your client approvers that they have time that's needing their review. Now, of course, to keep this process as simple and as streamlined for your clients, they don't have to worry about memorizing a URL and a username and password to be able to access the time approval portal. It'll be as easy for them to simply come into their email, click on review timesheets for approval, and this is going to drive them right into their time approval portal system. As we can see here, Jake currently has 2 timesheets that require his approval. The one for Linda that we just submitted, and then one from John that John had submitted over earlier today. Now we can easily come in and expand those out to see the hours breakdown for each of the timesheets. But perhaps I want to take a closer, more detailed look at Linda's time card. I can expand this out. I can see day over day, the time that had been added. Perhaps Linda worked 9 hours on Wednesday and I need to correct that or adjust it. I could easily do so by adding it in here and then incorporating a comment as to why I've modified the timesheet and then approve those changes. We're going to leave Linda's timesheet as it is, as all of these hours for Linda were accurate. And it's going to be just as easy. I can simply approve individual timesheets by just clicking on the green check box, or I could do a multiple approval option as well. So it'll be very streamlined and simple for your time card approvers to be able to go through and review the timesheets. You'll notice here that because Jake hasn't assigned an alternate approver for his time cards, it's prompting Jake as a reminder of, are you going to be available for next pay period? Would you like to assign an alternate approver? So especially thinking as we're coming into the summer months and people wanting to take time off and to travel, this would be a great way to remind your time card approvers to ensure that we have an alternate approver set up in case they're going to be out. Jake, unfortunately, is not going to be taking any time off next week, so he doesn't need to assign an alternate approver for that pay period. So now, of course, all of our hours for this pay period have been resolved. So now Linda has submitted her time. Jake has reviewed and approved said time, and you're going to be able to see all of that within real time right inside of Bullhorn. So when we come into Bullhorn, we're going to be able to access our pay and bill information right here within our menu slide out. So as we jump into our pay and bill and open up our payables information, this is where now we're going to be able to see all of that time that has come through from all of our candidates, whether it's currently within a submitted status, approved status, if there's a time that has been worked or time that has not, we're going to be able to see all of that right here. So when we come in and we start looking at, we can see our statuses of what's been ready to be paid out versus what is not. As we look over here toward the right of the approved timesheet statuses that have come through versus those that have time but have only been submitted, not yet approved. You're also going to be able to select records if we need to, update and mark them as ready to be paid. We're going to be able to do so right here from the list view. When we're ready to review the information, not only are we going to be able to drive out what's ready to be paid and what is not, we can click on the binocular slide out and be able to see all of the payable charges information. We can tie this right into our general ledger with our chart of accounts, as you can see here within the accounting ownership. And then as I drive down, we can see the different earn codes that we have set up for this placement, the units of measure in which we're collecting time, what the pay rate will be, as well as the automatic calculations of the overtime. Perhaps we have a bonus that we're wanting to add in here to this payable file for John. We could easily add additional pay transactions or remove or edit what's currently here. Now, typically, for the most part, if there's any hours adjustments and things that would be taking place, those, of course, you would want to have originated from the timesheet and drive through that approval process, but always know that you do have the ability to make edits and changes at this level as well. So as we've reviewed John and Linda's time, and we get to look at preparing this to send it out to our payroll provider. So we're going to be able to select what's ready to be paid and what we're looking to run through and send out for those pay cycles, which we're just going to focus on the two here for the week ending of the 13th, the one for John and the one for Linda. We're going to be able to select those records and then right here within the list view, run our payroll export. Now, one of the great things that we hear from a lot of our clients with the Bullhorn One solution is not only do we have our integrated payroll solution if you're looking to do in-house, but also great outsourcing options as well, being that Bullhorn One is payroll agnostic. And what I mean by that is as long as your payroll provider is able to accept a flat file or CSV import, we're going to be able to create that export profile for those such as like Paylocity and ADP and EmployDrive and such to be able to then process that out, take that payroll export, drive it into and upload it into your payroll provider, and then run payroll as you're doing today. So now that we're able to run that payroll export, have that information within our payroll provider, accurately and properly and efficiently pay our candidates, now we're going to be looking to take that information and now look to properly bill out our clients. So just as we were able to come into our menu, slide out and access our payables, we're going to be able to do the same thing with billing. Now, keeping in mind when we set up the client invoice terms and location settings at the earlier start of today's presentation, now is where we're going to see all of that come into action. So here is we have the time for the week ending of the 13th. And for John and Linda, we're going to be able to select those billable charges en masse, just like we did when we prepared them for payroll export, to do the same when it comes to generating invoicing. But just as we've done with the payables, we can click on that binocular, slide out, view all of the billable charges that we're going to be getting ready to create the invoice off of right here inside of Bullhorn. Thinking in the same aspect of maybe we had a bonus or additional pay transaction we wanted to add from the payables list. Perhaps this is John's first invoice and we have some additional costs that we're going to be billing the client for. Perhaps we have background or drug screening costs, skill assessments, things of that nature. We're going to be able to drive in those billing transactions right here as well to ensure that we're able to have all of that information present on the invoice without having to edit that in post creation. So as we've reviewed the billable charges and everything's in place, we simply would select, just as we saw with payables, these are ready to be billed. And then right from here, we're able to come in, select the billable charges, and now generate invoice. So as we begin to generate the invoice, we'll see it starting to process. And as soon as it moves into invoicing, we're going to go in and we're going to take a look at that invoice that's now grabbed those rules that we have set up with that billing profile and applied it to these charges. So as we come in now back into our pay bill and open up our invoices, we should now see the new invoice that we've just created. So as we look here, we see invoice 463 for the amount of $38.28.35. We see that billing profile that we had on our placement record of that Hazelwood Net 30. And when we want to take a closer look at the invoice before we go through and approve to get it all pushed over to our client, we can now see our groupings of where we grouped by candidate, summarized out our totals per candidate, and we've split this invoice by the billing contact, which is Jake Owens. As I scroll down, I can see that we had sales tax being applied based off the location. So we're able to pull in all of the sales tax based off that region for the city of Hazelwood, the county of St. Louis, as well as the state of Missouri. So we can see what that total tax amount is going to be, as well as a total invoice. When we're ready to move through to approve and finalize, we're going to be able to take action right here to do so. Now, prior to finalizing, if we want to move in and take a quick preview of that invoice, all we would need to do is simply just click on the file folder here in the top right corner and be able to take a quick preview of that invoice to see, well, what will this look like with the template and the format in which we have set up for this client. So we have ours where we've branded our logo towards the top. We see our invoice number, date, when the due date is based on what we've assigned within that 30, our remittance information. Then of course, as we come down, we've got that grouping and summarization that's taking place. But most importantly, now we're also seeing that we've automatically associated the timesheet detail to this invoice as well, which is allowing us to be able to come in and have all of that information in one place without having to go and manually pull it back out of our time collection system or downloading as a PDF and manually attaching it as an attachment. We can have all of this grouped together automatically based off of that rules engine that we set up during client intake. So from here, we can then, if the client would prefer to receive a physical copy, we can of course print and mail the invoice. We can email directly from Bullhorn. And then of course, within that invoice list, select the invoices as needed, just as we've done with our payables and billables, and do our export out to our general ledger. Now, very similar to the way we're able to export with payables to our payroll provider, when it comes to the GL, we can also create that flat file CSV for export, but we do have some additional middleware solutions, one with the web connector with QuickBooks Desktop to be able to share the information there, as well as some other middleware providers and system implementers that can tie together to things such as like Microsoft Great Plains as well. So now that we have been able to input all of that, the client intake information, and see how that rules engine is going to roll downstream and how simplified it will now be as we're coming through and being able to take that information and trust and ensure that the invoices are being generated quickly and efficiently, but most importantly, accurately based on those clients' needs, without having to result back to looking at different notes or Post-its that I have around my desk or the binder or folders that I have for that client each and every time. Or of course, I'm sure apply locking that to memory for as frequently as you do it. Now we can have all of that right here inside of Bullhorn to allow that scalability across the organization. So not only are we going to be able to have that ease of use and having all of the information in one place, but when we think of also the ways of being able to have financial analytics and data driven to allow us to make those smart business decisions, right? So when we think about, maybe we want to see and have it on a wallboard in the account manager's offices or recruiters area of how many contractors do we have in the field today? What is our trend over the next 30 days? Who's the top 5 consultants that have contractors working and the top locations or divisions, really to help drive that team spirit and that competitiveness to, I want to take the top spot. So I need to start working to beat a hot out with his 49 contractors that he has in the field right now. And that's going to help drive some upcoming starters for us as a team and really bring in that difference gap and margin. And then when we think about the ways of all of the different places that we are double checking and triple checking today, perhaps we want to keep an eye on our daily hours and headcount broken down by a location or a client or a division week over week. right? To ensure that, the time that's being worked and driven, and, the head count is in the right place for this company or for a particular assignment, right? Being able to have driving those insights and having all of that reporting right at your team's fingertips. Taking that combined information, let's think about gross margin and gross profit, as well as your hiring rates. Being able to break that down not only by your specific clients, but also within the placement or the jobs within those clients. Looking at, how many days are left on this placement? When is it coming to an end? What is our current margin percentage and our projected spread for this role off of data that we've seen? And being able to bring those front office analytics that you have today and joining them together with the pay and bill details, being that Bullhorn One is that single source of truth. And probably one of the reports that I hear so much positive feedback from and insight from some of my current customers is going to be like a client scorecard report. Now, when we think about that cash flow perspective breaking down across our clients of, maybe as an account manager, I'm looking to do and start working on some new business campaigns, but I can see that perhaps there's a company I was looking to target that has quite a bit of unpaid invoice balances and lower margins, or maybe it takes quite a bit of time for us to get a conversion from them. Perhaps that might not be a customer that I'm going to put at the top of my pursuit. Or think of it in the flip side of, maybe there's a client that we see some great turnaround on paid invoices and the amount that's being paid they typically average a higher margin. And that's somebody that we want to target to see if there's more business opportunity. Now we're able to take that data insight that lives within Bullhorn and be able to make those stronger business decisions. So when we think about Bullhorn One of being that, start to finish solution built specifically for staffing, right? Bullhorn One helps customers make that first step in this journey by digitizing everything that's going on within your business, from intake all the way through invoice. And then using that data to not only drive efficiency through automation, but also drive insights to inform your decisions and power your business. And we've done this by building a complete pay and bill solution with timekeeping, invoicing, financial reporting, and payroll, either through a partner or a provider of your choice, all made stronger by being built on the Bullhorn platform, which is designed to be flexible and extensible in order to meet your needs. So with that, we went ahead and leave some time here for some questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, we had some questions come in. The first of which is around payroll. So people are asking, can you use different payroll providers?
Yes. So when it comes to the different payroll providers, we are payroll agnostic. So a key piece is ensuring that your payroll provider will allow for a flat file CSV import, and we'll be able to tailor that export file in Bullhorn to meet their needs.
Great. Another question is, can you do profitability analysis by client or contract?
Yeah, so it's very similar to that profitability of when we looked at the example with the client health report, right? Being able to see, not only of what companies are driving some of the higher margins, but also looking at, are they paying, right? It's important to not only identify where the opportunity for volume and higher margin perspective to margin, but also it's important that the invoices that are being sent out are also being paid in a timely manner to keep that cash flow healthy.
Okay. And then another question here is, can the candidate or account manager add extra charges like mileage, bonuses, etc., prior to the approval of the time card, or can only be done after the fact?
So adding extra charges like mileage and bonuses prior to the approval of the time card. The candidate, you will have the option within your earn codes when adding time, the candidate can select from the drop down, what earn code you've allotted. So if there's mileage for them to turn in, and you also have expense tracking and other pieces that you've granted permission and set up for that candidate on that placement, they will be able to select that, or you would also be able to go in and manually add that prior to the approval of the time card, as well as it can be done after.
Got it. And then what billing cycles are available out of the box with Bullhorn 1?
So we will be able to do weekly, bi-weekly, and monthly.
Right. Trying to see what other questions we have here. Can my client invoice permanent placements from Bullhorn 1?
Yes, you would be able to run invoices for perm placements.
Okay, just running through these questions. Someone is asking about what VMS we integrate with. I think it's like 40 plus at this point, right, Chris? I don't think we can list them all off on this call, but I'm sure we could get them a web page that lists those out.
You definitely follow up with some lists. Yeah, there are quite a few of them.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just trying to see what other questions there are here. Chris, feel free to bring any up that you'd like to answer as well.
Yeah, so with NetSuite, I see that we've got one of it. Do we integrate with NetSuite? How are you pulling in unpaid invoice information? So as of right now, we do have with the GL a middleware solution that you could use to tie in that kind of connects to the API. We're not bringing information back into Bullhorn quite yet, but we are able to track what invoice, like unbilled items out, and then being able to flag that invoice in Bullhorn when it's been paid, and then tracking that very similar to like how we showed in the client health report for what invoice has been paid and what is not, with roadmap of being able to autonomously bring a bi-directional integration with your GL. Got it. That's helpful. I see that we've got a question around burden factors, FICA, SUDA, FUTA. Yes, you are going to be able to set up burden factors and be able to track that, especially if you're using like an integrated payroll partner solution. You're going to be able to have that information shared directly with the integration between that partner. Great. I'm just trying to see. What about in addition of how our hours imported through the VMS? We do have the Bullhorn time and expense exchange that is able to go in and you're able to download the time from the exchange directly into BTE. Great. I'm trying to see what other questions we have here. If I have to change a time card from a previous period and an OT situation is involved, will it calculate it? Yes, it will. So you'll be able to bring in that time and you'll see that being auto calculated within the payable and billable charges. Okay, great. All right, well, I think we answered almost all the questions we have here. There's a couple outstanding that might be a little bit too complicated to answer on the call, but like I said, we'll be following up with everyone on a one-on-one basis with answers to make sure you guys get them. And you guys will also receive a copy of this recording within the next 24 hours. So we'll be sure to follow up with you there. Thanks again to Chris and Emily for a great webinar session, and I hope to see everyone on our future webinars. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.